morning, everyone. The time is 8:02. We are going to get the Committee on Appointments meeting started for today, our last one of 2024. Our first action item is a resolution confirming Mayor Bliss's appointment of Jennifer Schottky to the City Planning Commission. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved in second. Any discussion or comments on this item? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. Item 2 is a resolution confirming Mayor Bliss's appointment of Sarah Andro to the Monroe North Tax Increment Finance Authority. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion or comments on this item? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. Item 3, a resolution confirming Mayor Bliss's appointment of Daryl Haywayer to the North Quarter Corridor Improvement Authority. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion or comments, commissioners? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. Item 4 is a resolution confirming Mayor Bliss's appointment of Mayor-elect David LeGrand to the Grand Valley Metropolitan Council, the Mobile GR Commission, the Interurban Transit Partnership, the Downtown Development Authority, the Monroe North Tax Increment Finance Authority, and Waste to Energy Advisory Committee. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion or comments on this item?
You first.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, no, I've served on the Mobile GR Commission the past 2 years and have loved that experience. I think they're very well equipped with some very passionate residents about all things transportation. I think Mayor-elect LeGrand will do a great job, and they'll be well served to have his presence on that body. I know it's a very personal passion about his, talking about how people in our city move and things of that nature. So I'm looking forward to having them work with him too. So
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Isasi?
Yeah, I was just going to say that was a long resolution. And so I think there's a number of items on here, and so I'll look forward to especially hearing more, especially as it relates to the waste to energy. I think that's going to be one of the bigger topics in front of us. And so I'll look forward to regular updates and certainly on the Mobile GR Commission as we look to operationalize the master plan. Thanks.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? It carries. Item 5 is a resolution approving year-end reappointments to various boards and commissions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. So this is a lengthy support document, lengthy memo, dozens and dozens of names of folks to be reappointed to nearly every board, including appointments for commissioners and commissioners-elect for our boards and commissions and subcommittees for next year. Any comments on this item? Commissioner Isasi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to say thanks again to Ms. Bosker for spending a lot of time on this work. It's a lot, I think, outside of the traditional year end. This was more complicated by the fact that, I shouldn't say complicated, it just presented more opportunities to communicate. I know you led those efforts with your new colleague in the 3rd Ward. I know that just talking to, obviously, the mayor and mayor-elect communicated quite a bit, but so that regular cycle probably took twice as long. And also, Ms. Bosker has only been doing this work since mid-September. So I really just want to say thank you to you, thank you to the clerk, thank you to our deputy city clerk, because I know that this year was full of a number of things, particularly the number one thing with the election, but that doesn't mean everything else also has to happen. And so, and I just want to say thank you, Commissioner Perdue, for your service on this body. I know you have pushed us, and I say pushed in a really best way of like, how could we think differently about these bodies? What is the people's experience on these bodies? What is the feedback loop? We're asking people to give their time and energy, and we need to make sure we're prepared to do that. And so, I want to say thank you for your leadership, and I'm still going to see you down the hall, but
Thank you. And my commissioner-elect in the 3rd Ward, Kilgore, will be, I believe he's set to be, proposed to be chair next year. And so I'm looking forward to continuing some of those things that we started this year around experience and recognition, consistency, feedback, loop, so on and so forth. So thank you for that. Any further comments on this item? Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. And our last item of 2024 is our vacancy list. So we've put a big made a lot of progress in this, particularly with this last action item. But is there anything that folks would particularly like to discuss today? Commissioner Robbins?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. I'm not sure that her resignation made it on today's agenda, but I just wanted to bring to the forefront of everyone's mind, Fran Dalton with Garfield Park Neighborhood Association will be retiring at the end of the year after a long tenure of service to that neighborhood. And so with that, she serves on our South Division Granville Corridor Improvement Authority, so we'll have an opening coming up with that. She's not completely going away. I know we've got some subcommittees that don't require residentship, and so I think there'll be certainly some opportunities to still have her around the table and contributing, but just want to make sure that her long service and dedication to our city gets noted.
Thank you. We have one other resignation, a formal resignation on tonight's agenda from the Community Relations Commission as well. Any other comments? Okay, wonderful.
I just have just one thing. Ms. Bosker is going to be in a permanent position here, so she's no longer acting as the administrative analyst one. She is the administrative analyst one in the clerk's office.
That's great to hear. Congrats.
So she'll be here as well.
That's a great way to end the meeting. Thank you. So glad you'll continue here. You've been great. All right, and with that, we are adjourned, 8:09.
Thank you.
will call the Fiscal Committee to order here at 8:30. Thank you all for being here. First item on the agenda this morning is the approval of a city sponsorship contributions for the 2025 Art Prize for $100,000 through the Office of General Administration and $50,000 through Mobile GR Department with additional in-kind services of $50,000. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Is Mr. Matthews here? Nope. Ms. Claren, you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. Oh, and here he comes.
Oh, here he is. I didn't even see him back there.
Hold on.
Yeah, so
This is a continuation of what we've been doing over the past few years in support of Art Prize. If you recall, just about a month and a half ago, we came back with the arts economic impact study that indicated the impact that some of these large arts events have here in the city of Grand Rapids, and this is our measure of support to see that that continues.
Very good. Colleagues, any questions? All right, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, sir. Item 2 is 89 Monroe Center sublease renewal with the Grand Rapids African American Museum and Archives.
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. Ms. Claren?
This is just a simple renewal on that item. So not much to include. I don't see anyone in here from Mobile GR, but yeah, this would extend the lease agreement through June of 2025. And allows for the optional renewal through December. So.
Very good. We'll wait just 1 second here for Ms.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just had a follow-up question for
Please.
Ms. Claren. Ms. Claren, I know that this item has come before us, and I know that they're in the process of, making the investment in their own space. How many times have we renewed it? I'm guessing you all had a conversation about time length and.
Right. I would have to go back and look.
Okay.
But it's been, I can think of we've done this at least 2 or 3 times now
Okay.
since I've been
But
here.
their plan is to go into a new space.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for confirming that.
All right, any other questions? All right, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 3 is a resolution accepting a grant award of $1 million from the State of Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity for the facilities construction of city facilities at 1500 Scribner Avenue Northwest project.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Mr. Bergman, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. So the city clerk worked to secure this $1 million grant through the state's Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity to support the construction of our city complex that's underway at 1500 Scribner, specifically the portion of that project that's supportive of election activities. So the new facility will provide secure storage, operations, processing, and training, all of which support elections. Now, this is in addition to the $1 million Michigan Department of Treasury grant that was also accepted by Commission in July of this year, and that will be later on in your agenda packet under the budget amendment today. But requesting your approval of this grant agreement with the state.
Very good. Colleagues, questions? Nice work, Mr. Clerk.
Thanks. Merry Christmas.
All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4, resolution approving an amended agreement between the City of Grand Rapids and the Kent County Convention Arena Authority and the City of Grand Rapids relating to the Acrisure Amphitheater parking structure bonds.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Ms. Behrens, good morning.
Good morning. I tried to lay out in the memo sort of the background here, but this is an amendment that is necessary to an agreement that the Commission approved just a couple months ago. If you recall, the city is issuing several tranches of debt in order to support construction of the Acrisure Amphitheater. This particular tranche was to support up to $30 million worth of debt, which would be paid back by the CAA with their revenues. And this agreement that was originally approved a couple months ago was both that commitment of revenue and then a description of the various ways that there would be funds available in the event that in any particular year those revenues were not enough to cover the cost of the debt service. One of the ways that we layered in mitigation was what we called a lowercase d DSA, debt service account. Upon review and reflection of that structure in a different agreement, we got some tax counsel advice that there is a capital DSA potential interpretation of debt service account that was not what we intended, and that could have had some impact on the tax exempt status of the debt. So we have had to restructure that. The protections for the city are still in place to ensure that the CAA maintains excess cash in order to cover in any particular year if they don't have adequate revenue. So intent is the same, but we had to structure it differently in order to comply with variety of bond and tax law.
Very good. Colleagues, questions? All right, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5 is a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the City of Grand Rapids and the Kent County Convention Arena Authority with the Grand Rapids Downtown Development Authority regarding proceeds for the construction of the Acrisure Amphitheater.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
Thank you. So this agreement is with the Downtown Development Authority. This was, again, a tranche of debt that the commission approved back in February. The DDA board committed their revenues to repayment of that annual debt service. This agreement that's in front of you now is really the mechanical, how are the invoices going to be evaluated and kind of all of the repayment terms because of the role of the CAA and Grand Action in construction of the facility itself. So sort of deals with the mechanics and ensures that the bond proceeds are used in the way that they are intended to be used.
Very good. Questions? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, ordinance amending Section 1 of the Budget Ordinance 2024-2023 for fiscal year 2025, amendment number 5.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Ms. Claren, good morning.
Thank you. The first item is coming out of the discussion from our commission workshop. So we had discussed about wanting to contribute money into the Budget Stabilization Fund. Our policy level is 10% of 10% relative to general fund expenditures. So to get back within policy level, we're proposing to contribute $1 million. I think I gave an estimate of $750,000, but given we did analysis of expected spending through the rest of the year, so this $1 million should get us within policy for fiscal year 25. Number 2, out of IT, we have a state and local cybersecurity grant. This is for $147,000. This is in the other grants fund. The next one is for the Scribner project that we have the public. This is also the public services work we're doing up on Scribner to create a new facility. This is one of our last allocations of ARPA, actually. So we're contributing $1 million towards that project. Into the Capital Improvement Fund for the Police Department, we have the Homeland Security Grant for MEVO Anywhere Kits. This is $21,000 into the Police Grants Fund. For the Fire Department, for the fiscal year 22 Homeland Security Grant for a training course, this is just over $30,000 to the Fire Grants Fund. Number 6, related to the reconstruction of Division Avenue, $443,000 going into the Vital Streets Capital Non-Bond Fund. And I believe they're matched $37,000 out of an appropriations going into the Water Improvement Fund. And lastly, just to round it up, we got $6,227 going into the Sewer Improvement Fund. Number 7, also out of engineering improvements to Parkway Drive, Waterford Court area. This is $50,000 of the Capital Improvement Fund. Number 8, another engineering department move. This is preventive maintenance of Riverside Park Bridge over the Grand River Lagoon. This is $247,000 in the Capital Improvement Fund. Number 9, we are purchasing a demo fire engine rather than going out purchasing a much more expensive new engine. This is fire department being mindful of their budget, have found a way to purchase a demo engine, so it's slightly used, but they like it and it's working really well. We're using ARPA funds for this as well, so $444,000 for that's going to be appropriated for purchasing of this in the general operating fund under the fire department. Number 10, another ARPA allocation. This is additional funds for the Greenway projects, as well as some additional work at Scribner Avenue, so about $7.6 million going towards that. And number 11, out of the executive office, this is, we've talked about the participatory budgeting plan in here. We appropriated a lot of funds back, I believe it was in either May or June. Obviously, those contracts haven't been paid out completely. We did not do an official carry forward request that we usually do in August because we wanted to be mindful of spending, and decided to wait till mid-year to bring it back when we could gauge how much should be going out the door for the rest of the year. So this is truing up that budget to expenditures, rolling forward what was approved last year. So the remaining amount is just under $1.8 million that's going to be appropriated into the executive office to satisfy those contracts. Number 12, Third Ward Equity Fund reappropriation. Again, this is another roll forward of previous appropriations made in fiscal year 24. That money hadn't been designated yet. So we are going to appropriate $250,000 of that money into the executive office department, as well as $50,000 in appropriations towards the, we're just going to land it in the general administrative department. Number 13, this is our final item. This is a reappropriation of identified personnel and related budget from the Fiscal Services Department, from the Comptroller Department into Fiscal Services, just to give, and this is all in the general fund, just to give some context, because I know there's been a lot of discussion around this in the last few days, for clarification for the commission. Over the last few years, we've received a lot of staff complaints, also exit interviews, comments have been made. We've had turnover of key staff positions, and it's been the city manager as well as my concern to make sure the staff is still supported to do work. With the turnover, we've had delays in our ERP. It's contributed to delays in our ERP go live. All this together has resulted in the city manager tasking the city attorney to go over and clarify roles of the comptroller, the city treasurer, as well as the city manager. So our attorney's office did clarify roles for us, and this is the result of working with the attorney's office as well as with these positions that have been identified that where they should appropriately be, working with the city treasurer in that discussion of where they should land. And then it's, again, just trying to align to the charter. The comptroller does retain an internal auditor as well as a deputy and an executive administrative support position. This still enables the comptroller to be able to investigate and have access to systems in that role as what we informally call, refer to as the watchdog role of the city to ensure we are doing proper spending and things of that nature. So beyond that, our contingent balance remains at $1.5 million for the year, and if there are any questions, me and staff are here to support.
Very good. Commissioners, questions?
Commissioner O'Connor, I have a few questions.
I'm going to turn to my colleagues first, and then I'll turn to you, Comptroller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, too, wanted to speak to the last item out of the budget ordinance. Thank you, Ms. Claren, and certainly hear from the comptroller following our comments. I think that probably over the last 3 years, I would say, I think, people kind of expect this last meeting to be a little quiet meeting. I would say over the last couple of years, colleagues, these final meetings haven't been quiet because the reality is the work that we do often happens in cycles, 6 months, a year, a couple of years. And so sort of having this purview of knowing that there have been times when the comptroller has approached me and others about the need for additional staff. I think we always have to balance that as it relates to our overall budget. Ms. Claren mentioned the ERP system. I think any large organization, when we've made such a huge investment and also have had timelines delayed, that we need to look at the design of our organizations and how roles are lining up. I think that would never support anything that wasn't being done with the full review of our city attorney's office and making sure that those charter pieces are in line. All of us, or the three of us up here as elected officials, we are responsible. We might not have that title of watchdog, but it is oversight, budgetary input, hearing from our constituents, but we are not directing the day-to-day operations of staff. And I think, quite honestly, that can get a little confusing. It'd be hard, for example, on the Civil Service Board if I directed, our HR director's work, because I would not be able to give the time and energy as well as connect and to communicate across systems. I think it is important to know, and I'm going to say that again, there will continue to be, the records and the books and the review of the finances. I also think that in more to sort of my day-to-day job of running a nonprofit, I am not the one. I am responsible for the financials of the organization, reporting that to my body of board of directors, but I'm not the one who is auditing that information. And so I think this adds that additional layer. So I am supporting this. I'm supporting these budget ordinances. I also would like to say, I think this may not be the only change that we see align related to our finances. We've had some good conversations with our city treasurer, who I have the full faith in as well, just renewed his contract, to look at what are other ways that when we talk about finances of the city, it's not just sort of one thing. There's multiple entities, and so I'm also I think just saying out loud that there could be other alignment changes as it relates to different functions in the city. And I would expect and I would hope, and I have full confidence that this change will happen. And Ms. Claren's leadership as CFO has always been stellar, but we know that it will be a change. And so let me recognize that there's also members of the comptroller's office here. And so I want to say that as well, and say that I hope that the three of you will, in this new era, will work together on that. And then there may be future eras as we get into our budget cycle and process that I'd be very open to reviewing and discussing. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Perdue?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I want to make a comment on the Third Ward Equity Fund item I think 12, letter L. So when this first came to commission and through the Economic Development Project team, we identified 4 areas to use these funds for. And we've had conversations since then, and so there's a little bit of adjustment. So I just want to provide some clarity, as opposed to splitting it across the 4 investment focus areas of placemaking, summer youth programming and victim services, 3rd, economic development, and 4th, pedestrian and infrastructure improvements. Instead of all of those being equal, really wanting placemaking to stay at 250. And that's, we approved something about that recently with Grandma. Summer Youth 125, pedestrian improvement 200, and really shifting some of those dollars into economic development to provide those startup grants for businesses and to support town and country. So just wanted to provide some clarity that what's in the packet is a guideline, but we've been having continuous conversations about how to more narrowly focus those items. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Comptroller?
All right, thank you, and good morning. So first of all, I appreciate just some of the comments that Ms. Claren shared with the extra context around this change that weren't included in the budget item memo for item number 13. But I do want to address one point that came up in your comments too, around issues with the ERP system implementation. I want to fully refute, what you said, because I strongly believe that the only reason why this project has gotten as far as it has is because the team members in the city comptroller department are working nights and weekends to make it happen, and have been loud and vocal to me and to myself through city commissioners on the need for resources in that team. They are making it happen. They are not causing a delay in a project. Millions and millions of dollars have been committed to third parties who are not even here at City Hall helping implement the system. So I just want to fully discredit what you said about the city comptroller department, because it's so far from the truth. Those people are putting every ounce they have in them to make this project happen and believe in it just as much as anyone at the city. Now, I do have some comments I also want to make regarding this change. Well-intentioned plans in local government begin with transparency and engagement from our communities, residents, and voters. I do not support, nor was I as city comptroller or any of the 16 comptroller department personnel at the city of Grand Rapids engaged in this plan. A change crafted without collaboration and delivered by force is not an amicable one and will not be a lasting one. I do not support or condone impairing, inhibiting, preventing the performance of charter-prescribed duties to the city comptroller or any elected officer at the city of Grand Rapids for that matter. I do not support or condone the proposed changes which will disregard, circumvent, and likely even violate the city charter. I do not support changes that could result in more inefficiencies in government. Efficiency has been touted consistently around these changes, yet no one has heard an actual quantifiable metric or performance measure to understand what does that actually mean. I do not support changes such as this that concentrate and consolidate more and excessive power in the hands of a few people. This leaves the city more vulnerable to abuse and may further undermine public trust in our government. I do hear, recognize, and respect the voice of 64% of Grand Rapids voters that participated in a democratic process and rejected the managerial structure and reporting line you are implementing in the city of Grand Rapids without their input. These changes will lead to impaired transparency, loss of financial oversight, and ease of access to that oversight, and create substantial issues in the administration of duties and responsibilities prescribed to myself and any future city comptroller in the city of Grand Rapids. Now, I do have a couple of questions. Specifically, the first one for Ms. Claren, as outlined in your memo pertaining to issues with the charter. Can you please state the title and section of the City of Grand Rapids City Charter that has been violated?
Before you answer that question, I think if it's all right, I'd like to invite the city attorney to the dais or to the microphone. The city attorney represents the city commission as well as the city of Grand Rapids and has provided the commission with a lengthy legal opinion.
Absolutely. So I'm Mr. Franz. I did have a conversation with you and asked that any questions that you have, that you direct them to our office so that we can answer them. But yet again, you choose to do it this way. Nonetheless, it's more than just the city charter, because when we do legal research, it's not just one place that we look. It's like a puzzle to get the full picture. And so we looked at the city charter, we looked at past legal opinions, and there's over 50 years of past legal opinions that address all of these issues that we're talking about today, but no one took the step to take action to correct it. We also looked at state law, and we took every job description of every person in that department, went through their duties, and then matched them up where they should go, whether it's with the comptroller, the treasurer, or the city manager. And so it's more than just looking at the charter. The charter doesn't cover everything. So whenever we do research, we look at state law, we look at judicial opinions, we look at policies. There's a bigger picture to this. And so if you think about it, you all are elected officials. You appoint 4 of us. That's what the charter says. If you look at the comptroller, it says he appoints his deputy. That's what it says. Nowhere in there does it say that he gets a whole department of people. It doesn't say he gets payroll. It doesn't say he gets purchasing. It says he appoints his deputy, and that deputy is required to have the accounting background and education to be able to do that accounting work. It also says that what he does is ministerial, which is oversight of what we do. He'll still be able to do that with these changes. I think what's missing here is those are city employees. They're not comptroller employees, they're city employees. They're under the purview of the city manager, not the comptroller. They're housed in that office to do that body of work, but they're still city employees. And so our city manager, because they are his employees, has the authority to reorganize, and that's what we've recommended, to line these duties up where they should be so that we can be more efficient and effective in this work.
Thank you, Madam Attorney.
Thank you for your input, City Attorney. Back to the question, is there a title or section of the city charter that we are out of compliance or in violation of specifically?
I'm trying to think of how to specifically answer that. Sarah, can you help me? In general. Or you can just answer it. No? Okay. So Title VI, where it talks about appointive officers or employees, Section 90A through J. And if you want to look that up and come and discuss it, we can do that.
Thank you.
As well as
City Charter Title II, officers elected by the City Commission, Section 9, Parent 9, Section 3.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
All right,
I have another question, Commissioner O'Connor, if that's okay.
please.
Ms. Claren, again, pertaining specifically to the remarks in your memo on the public agenda item pertaining to risks that the City Comptroller Department and structure has presented. Has a licensed independent audit firm issued any audit findings stating that these risks were found in the City Comptroller Department or City of Grand Rapids?
No. No. I will say, though, that, around something like employee payroll, my department has been serving as backup and corrective in, ensuring that we pay employees correctly. I've notified you of some of your issues as well as both of your past two deputies over the last couple months. So there is a need to, as I expressed to you, make sure we provide proper training and support for that employee.
Yeah, I appreciate those remarks. Was the employee that was previously or the person that's performing backup, was that role previously in the Comptroller Department?
Prior to us, you're referring to the system administrators.
Yes, that's the individual
yep.
performing payroll
So-
backup, right?
All right, I'm not, this is getting out of control. This
Right now,
is,
yeah.
where this isn't a deposition between the
Support
comptroller and the
that,
city, CFO. Commissioners, do you have any additional questions?
Thank you, Chair. So, I just think it's really important to point out that the driving force of this is to ensure that we truly have checks and balances. So, City Attorney, can you talk about how this proposed change will actually strengthen checks and balances, transparency, independency, which is what, Comptroller, I hear you calling for and what I hear members of the public wanting to ensure that we have strong financial functions with checks and balances. So can you talk about how this might support that and if the risk of not making this change, how that might undermine it?
So this doesn't change his ability to do that. He'll still have access to all of our records. We'll still, anything that he reviews and asks of us, we have to provide that. We still have to do that. Keep in mind, he does our internal audit. We're also, by state law, required to do an annual audit where an independent firm comes in and completely does an audit of us. So we're going to have checks and balances. This does not change that. That staff will be in the same location doing the same work. Their work doesn't change. Anything that he's asked of them today, he will still be able to ask of them going forward after this change. None of that changes. The only thing that changes is the department and with the person in which they answer to. They'll still do the work. He'll still have access to them as well as all other departments to be able to request review of documentations and report out to you all. That doesn't change. But it is an issue to have departments under him that do the day-to-day work that he's overseeing, and then he's going to turn around and audit that work. That's a conflict. And so, to me, this then puts us in line so that we remove those conflicts. It should give them even more time, because he's not over all this day-to-day staff, to be able to do that audit work or that oversight work that he's mandated to do by charter.
Thank you. I think it's important to point that out, and I think I'm really concerned to make sure that we have checks and balances so that we can have that transparency and true financial oversight, and ensure that the comptroller and his team still have access to the records that needed to do the oversight and auditing functions. And so I feel confident about moving forward with this item. Thank you for the legal opinion and the background. And I think we're all committed to ensure that Comptroller, you and your team are able to do your job because you're an important part of our city structure and financial oversight. Tthank you.
Thank you, Commissioner
And
Perdue.
lastly, if I could just say, if the comptroller does run into issues where he's not getting what he's asked for to do the job, then certainly let us know that.
Thank you. All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Vote same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8, Comptroller's Warrant Report for the period November 19, 2024 through December 2nd, 2024.
Good morning, Commissioners. So for this period, we released cash payments totaling approximately $40.7 million. That includes approximately $5.5 million for employee payroll expense and just under $362,000 for income tax warrants. In terms of quantity, 437 income tax refunds were issued and 1,127 accounts payable checks and electronic payments were issued. And as always, the details of all those payments greater than $20,000 are contained on the following page.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions about the Comptroller's report? All right, hearing none, that report is received and filed. And our final item is our Treasurer's report for the period November 21, 2024 and December 2nd, 2024.
Commissioner O'Connor, I think we skipped the bid list.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bid list for December 17th, 2024. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved and supported. Ms. Claren?
Just a few items this morning, all routine in nature. So if there are any questions.
Colleagues, questions on any items on the bid list? All right, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now to our final item, the Treasurer's report for the period November 21, 2024 through December 2nd, 2024. Mr. Treasurer.
Commissioners, we're closing out the year with our shortest report. So as of this week, we're looking at 100% probability of a 25 basis point rate cut. Our portfolio stands at $747 million, earning 3.6%. And over the course of the next 6 months or so, as rates continue to drift lower, we're going to be looking to place our money out longer so we can sustain a yield for a longer period of time. With that, I close up my report for this period.
everybody. It's approximately 9:16. We're going to go ahead and get our Community Development Committee meeting underway. We've got 18 items in front of us, so we'll go ahead and move through these as quick as we can. Item number 1, we've got a resolution adopting the tree manual and standards of practice for the enhancement, maintenance, and preservation of the city's urban forest and tree canopy. Is there a motion? All right, moved and supported. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. We had the chance to be in front of you at your last meeting to share an update on the tree manual guidelines, but also to provide to you an update on forestry. So this manual really is a consolidation of all of elements that have existed in city ordinance already and within the Department of Parks and Recreation. Specifically, this new manual will include tree planting guidelines, pruning specifications, protection of trees during construction, pest management, and utility vegetation management, all consolidated in one location, and to be reviewed by the Urban Forestry Committee on an annual basis.
Okay, great. Any questions, colleagues? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. Item number 2 is a resolution approving lease agreements with Garfield Park Neighborhoods Association, East Hills Council of Neighbors, and John Ball area neighbors for use of our Park Lodge buildings.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. This item is a 3-year renewal of lease agreements with these organizations at our park locations. They have been really beneficial organizations to have within our park spaces, acting as a resource to neighbors and residents, but also providing a level of activation within these spaces.
Any questions? Discussion, thoughts? All right, hearing none. I just want to say thank you. I think it's a great opportunity to see some of our local neighborhood organizations able to make use of our public park spaces. I think that's always a win-win to see that. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. All right, item number 3, we've got a resolution approving amendment to programmatic agreement with the Michigan State Historic Preservation Officer. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Good morning, Ms. Bohach.
Good morning. This is an item that we've actually had in place for decades, to be honest. This allows us to comply with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act that requires federal agencies to take in consideration the effects of their undertakings on historic properties. So our federal programs that we administer, this is a requirement. And we would have to send all of our items to SHPO for clearance that may be affected. And because we have staff here in the planning department, specifically that meet that criteria, it allows us to have some local control and not have to do that, which is a lengthy process. And so there's certain tiered reviews that we can do here locally to speed things up. And we do appreciate Rhonda Baker's efforts in that area.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, any questions on this one? All right, I'm hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Thank you. Item number 4, we've got a resolution awarding an agreement with Trellis for furniture, fixtures, and equipment for city facilities at 1500 Scribner Avenue Northwest in the amount of $1,068,132, with a total amount not to exceed $1,196,132.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moving to support, I think, Mr. Berkman?
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So we continue to make significant progress over at our 1500 Scribner campus, and excited to bring this next important piece of that complex puzzle before you for consideration. In November, we issued a request for proposals to provide the furniture, fixtures, and equipment for that facility, and received proposals from Trellis, dealership for Miller Knoll, from Custer on behalf of Steelcase, and Interphase working with Hayworth. Once we received those proposals, a committee reviewed, ranked, and scored those on a number of categories, including things like understanding of the project, their past performance in similar services and overall qualifications. Then decided to bring all 3 of those in for an interview and asked specific questions and objectives to be addressed in that interview, and then did a subsequent ranking or scoring rather on again experience, the actual project team that would be coming to us with this project, their approach and ability to meet our objectives and outcomes. Following conclusion of that, the scoring matrix was put together based on both the proposals and interviews, and on a qualifications-based selection, the team recommends Trellis Miller Knoll to you. Trellis is also the lowest on a cost basis as well, but this was done based on a qualifications base. So seeking your approval of the award of this agreement to Trellis in that amount that was read of $1,068,132 with a total not to exceed of $1,196,132. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks for that info. I'll turn to my colleagues first. I just had a couple of questions on this one, but I'll see what they have.
This question is maybe related to this in some ways, but it's a general question about how ARPA funds are being used, because part of this is including using of ARPA funds. And one of the things about the ARPA funds being federal funding that comes to us, unlike Michigan where we are prohibited from using diversity as a requirement, ARPA funds, federal funds, it does require that. So how does that work in a contract like this?
Yeah, so ARPA funding is part of the overall capital stack that's funding this overall project, but it's also funded through a variety of other sources, including grants. The city clerk received 2 grants this morning. One was taken before Fiscal Committee, but also bonds and capital improvement fund. And so those sources are obviously a mix of them, but we're tracking very closely which category of money goes to which particular item. And this one, I'd have to confirm or double check, but we do have the flexibility to utilize those funding sources as is most advantageous and most appropriate in the implementation of this.
So when you use ARPA funds in projects like this, I guess, and again, it's not just this one, because there's other things that have happened in which ARPA funds was used. How does the city meet the requirements that federal funding does require participation of diverse companies in that funding process?
And that most often shows up in construction contracts, which this is not. But when we do that, those requirements are spelled out in the bid specs, and that's tracked very closely. I think maybe to get at your question, perhaps another way. Trellis did include quite a bit of information in terms of the city's value of equity and what their commitment to that would be in terms of their proposal and their work. They had the most project-specific data, providing information on how they would partner with diverse-owned companies, recognizing the city's interest and commitment to that. They provided information on a diverse spend by product line, breaking down which suppliers were MBEs, WBEs, as well as veteran-owned businesses, and will be providing reports to us in terms of those spend categories.
Okay, thanks for your question. Commissioner, anything? Nope. I guess kind of in a somewhat similar vein too, I know, we'll get questions on items that come before us. This one being a furniture bid package in Furniture City USA. I think there's a lot of local people with local expertise, and to Commissioner Goy's point of, how to best support local through some of these contract bids. I guess, could you just speak to maybe like are we picking like local designers? Are we like the in-between pieces, between the bid package and when we make a purchase? Are we considering supporting local in an industry that is very important, obviously to our city, and then of course too, just being, over $1 million of furniture and being in a public works building. I know we've got probably, I would assume, some other opportunities for furniture dealers in the area to help furnish some of our other projects like the South Division Fire Station, their training center, things like that. So just being that I think some of those are, facilities that use a lot of heavy equipment, there's a lot of in and out, making sure that, if we're putting this much money into furniture too, we're making sure that we're comparing quality like for like and things like that. So just wondering if you could maybe color that in a little bit for us.
Certainly, and very fortunate to have these 3 companies to choose from. I mean, you line them all up, and they have a tremendous history, tremendous level of quality in any of them, and so it was good to be able to pick amongst those 3. I think the team was certainly very impressed with the presentation that Trellis brought forward and their commitment to a number of the city's values. I know Mr. Mr. Hurt was in on those presentations. Is there anything that you could add with respect to the, supporting local question by the commissioner?
Well, Tim's absolutely correct. We had 3 very good proposals. We are Furniture City USA, and the quality wasn't a consideration. The presentation really was, the trellis was an outstanding presentation. In terms of local, we have representatives here that could probably speak to installers and that type of thing, if that's what your question is. I'm not sure I could actually answer that one for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the information. I think it's just more a broad question of the type of facility that they'll be in, the amount of money we're spending on it. Just making sure that if we're putting this much money into a furniture package, we just want to make sure it's.
Well, it is going to be a public works facility, so break rooms will need to be durable because they're going to get a lot of wear and tear and lots of employees that will be in there. So we did take a look at the whole package.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, hearing no other questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. That'll bring us to item number 5. We've got a resolution awarding a contract with Pride Builders Group LLC for improvements to Roosevelt Park in the amount of $1,745,000 with a total amount not to exceed $2,300,000.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Welcome back, Mr. Marquardt.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Again, we are so pleased to be bringing this item forward. This is the construction of a brand-new park facility from the ground up, the first in over a decade in the Plaza Roosevelt neighborhood. What is so unique about this project is that it was designed 100% with resident voice. We very much turned the design process on its head, if you will, and gave far more control to the residents through this design process, which definitely slowed things down, but provided a great deal of learning and voice opportunity for this project. And so we will begin construction this spring as soon as the weather breaks, with anticipation of completion of this project by the end of 2025.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or discussion, colleagues? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Item number 6, we've got a resolution approving an agreement with MDOT and authorizing expenditures in an amount not to exceed $622,600 for the total share of costs for traffic safety upgrades on Fulton Street.
Support.
All right, moved and supported.
So just like the title says, this project will provide traffic safety upgrades at 2 intersections on Fulton, one at Lake Drive Union, and then also at the Fulton and College intersection. It'll include new improved ADA ramps at locations to improve crossing distances and angles at those intersections. Also modernized signals, backplates for improved visibility of those signals, new audible pedestrian push buttons, and new intersection pavement markings, all to improve pedestrian safety. The project includes $436,000 in federal funding through the Highway Safety Improvement Program, so it's being administered through MDOT. MDOT received bids on December 6th, with Strain Electric providing the low bid of $710,848, making the total estimated project cost of $1,058,600. When you deduct those federal funds through the Highway Safety Improvement Program, that leaves our local share at $622,600. So requesting your authorization of that local share amount to come from the Vital Streets Fund, as well as the approval of the agreement with MDOT.
Okay, great. Any questions, colleagues? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Item number 7, we've got a resolution approving an increase of $600,000 in expenditures to contracts for as-needed concrete and facade improvements at various locations for a total amount not to exceed $2 million.
Support.
All right, moved and supported.
So we currently have 3 contracts with RAM Construction Services, BVR Restoration, and Mark I Restoration Services, all that handle as-needed repairs or improvements on city-owned operated or operated facilities or parking ramps. These contracts were previously extended through June of next year and authorized to $1.4 million. We would like to utilize this contract to help facilitate some concrete repair work along the city's flood protection system, in particular between between Fish Ladder and the 6th Street Bridge along the west side of the river. Would also like to utilize the remaining funds that we have available through Kent County's flood wall bonds that they issued, and that amount is approximately $600,000, and we've made a commitment with the county to exhaust those funds prior to the end of June of next year. So seeking to complete this work, of course, while river levels are low and before the high spring water sets in, and this mechanism will allow us to do that. So seeking your approval ultimately to increase expenditures under these as-needed contracts by $600,000.
Okay, thanks. And could you just highlight too, just out of curiosity, what does that look like as for the west portion of the river, and coinciding with some of the work being done on the river? I guess what exactly is being done to that flood wall? So
some patching, there's some spalling that'll get repaired. There's some cap along that stretch that needs to be repaired and replaced. Really facade type work, but shoring up our flood protection system.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions on that one, colleagues? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Item number 8 is a resolution approving the revocation of obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificates number 3-19-0019 and number 3-19-0020 for Scott and Associates LLC at 1032 and 1040 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive Southeast.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported.
All right, good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, welcome.
Thank you. Just a quick background on this item. These original Oprah certificates were approved in 2019, and unfortunately, the previous owner passed away, and so a project never came to fruition at this location. The new owner is his wife, and she would like to continue on with this project. Typically what we do when there's a change in ownership is we transfer the certificate, but because there have been a number of years and no real benefit because there was no project, we want to request the revocation of these certificates so that the new owner can come back at your next meeting and request a new certificate.
Okay, thanks. Any questions, colleagues?
Just a comment to say we've been working with Mrs. Scott on this project along with about 8 other projects in the 3rd Ward. And it's will be a great addition and renovation of this building to it's situated in the corner of Martin Luther King Drive and Neelan Avenue. And it's going to be a wonderful renovation of this building. So I'm really happy to see this before us today.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Commissioner. Not allowed to. I know those types of situations are super sad, and sometimes individuals get situations thrown into their lives that are certainly not the best. But hopefully the staff can work with her and catch her up to speed. I know some of these things are very technical, so it'd be great if the staff could support her in getting that certification renewed. I think that would be awesome.
And Commissioner, just a point on that. So they are working with Sella Building Company. So Peter Scornia is supporting this project, and the Brownfield Authority did assist or will be assisting with a emerging developer grant here too. So.
Okay, that's fantastic to hear. All right, hearing no other questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Item number 9, we've got a resolution scheduling a public hearing for January 14th, 2025 to consider a brownfield plan amendment for the Annex Fulton redevelopment project located at 657 Fulton Street West.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported.
All right, so this project might look familiar. I think it was on your last agenda to schedule a public hearing on the NEZ component of this project. So this is the next phase, which is the brownfield. So this was approved at the Brownfield Authority meeting last week. Just a quick reminder, so it's currently a vacant lot, and the developer who's associated with Construction Simplified is looking to build 2 new 3-story buildings with 23 apartments. All of the apartments will be income restricted for a period of 18 years at 100% AMI. And then it's about a $6 million project with $4 million of construction costs, and they're seeking reimbursement for $959,000 of eligible brownfield activities.
Okay, great. Any questions, colleagues? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That carries. Item number 10, we've got a resolution scheduling a public hearing for January 14th, 2025 to consider a brownfield plan amendment for the Adobe West Fulton redevelopment project located.
Read that again.
Abode, I'm so sorry. Thank you. I'm thinking Adobe because,
Did the same thing.
yeah.
We were having a lot of fun
Okay.
doing agenda review and cabinet about Adobe and Abode.
Thank you for that. Well, thanks for cluing me into the fun. I'll reread this. So we've got a resolution scheduling a public hearing for January 14th, 2025 to consider a brownfield plan amendment for the Abode West Fulton redevelopment project located at 617 Fulton Street West and 17 Seward Avenue Northwest. Is there a motion?
Support.
All right, moved and supported.
Don't worry, everybody has done that at some point or another. The Brownfield
Thank you for
Authority,
that.
the same too. So yes, the Abode West Fulton project. So this is another one being proposed by Construction Simplified. So they're doing a lot of great work in the West Fulton area. So this one, again, came before you at your last meeting for an NEZ and has been approved for a Brownfield Plan Amendment by the Brownfield Authority. So this one is the demolition of the existing buildings at 617 Fulton and 17 Seward. Adobe is moving to Bridge Street. I almost did it. So that's still going to be around, which is great. So this is the construction of a new 4-story structure with 106 apartments and then 5,000 square feet of retail space. It's a $25 million project with $20 million in construction costs, and they're seeking $3 million in reimbursement from the Brownfield Authority.
Great, thank you. And the cherry on top is Adobe is not going away. They're just relocating. Important to note. Yeah. All right, colleagues, any questions on that one? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Item number 11, we've got a resolution scheduling a public hearing for January 14th, 2025 to consider an obsolete property rehabilitation district pursuant to Public Act 146 of 2000 for CGFH 955 Godfrey LLC, 945 and 1101 Godfrey Avenue Southwest.
So moved. Support.
All right, moved and supported.
Commissioner, if it's okay, the next two items are related, so
I
I'll
was just going to say, go right ahead.
briefly chat about those. So this is for an Oprah district as one large district for those two parcels, which are very large, and then two separate certificates, one for each. So total rehabilitation of the building, so there's about 568,000 square feet there between the two. The rehab of these buildings is expected to cost about $14.2 million. The developer, the applicant, believes that they'll be able to create 125 jobs with new tenants moving into the space. And there are a number of existing tenants in these buildings that they intend to keep, as well as, retain the existing jobs that are there. And I just wanted to note here that the applicant is still working to identify a general contractor, but like all of our projects are participating in the inclusion plan. And so they've outlined a goal of at least 15% of the total construction costs, or $2.1 million. So that's it on that one.
Okay, thanks. Any questions, colleagues? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. And then items number 12 and 13 here, as mentioned, are kind of partner items with this one. So number 12 is a resolution scheduling a public hearing for January 14th, 2025 to consider an application for a 10-year obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate pursuant to PA 146 of 2000 for CGFH 955 Godfrey LLC at 945 Godfrey Avenue Southwest.
So moved. Support.
All right, moved and supported. Colleagues, any other thoughts, questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. And then item number 13 is the resolution scheduling a public hearing for January 14th, 2025 to consider an application for a 10-year obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate pursuant to Public Act 146 of 2000 for CGFH 955 Godfrey LLC at 1101 Godfrey Avenue Southwest.
So moved. Support.
All right, moved and supported. Any discussion, questions? Nope. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That carries. So that'll bring us to number 14. We've got a resolution authorizing the City of Grand Rapids, Kent County Convention Arena Authority to enter into an agreement with ASM Global for management services.
So moved. Support.
All right, moved and supported.
Thank you, Commissioners. So this is kind of on the continued theme of support for the amphitheater and soccer stadiums. So each of these next three items, items 14, 15, and 16, are coming to the City of Grand Rapids City Commission for approval on the technical grounds that under our agreement with Kent County that established the Grand Rapids Kent County Convention Arena Authority, the CAA, as we affectionately refer to it, cannot enter into any agreements longer than 5 years without both the City Commission and the County Commission approving those agreements. So that's what 14, 15, and 16 each are. So 14 is an agreement with ASM Global. ASM Global currently provides management services at the Van Andel Arena and DeVos Place. Under this agreement, those services would be extended both to the amphitheater and the soccer stadium. As part of this agreement as well, ASM Global is bringing a significant contribution to the capital needs for both construction of those facilities, but also some capital infusion into upgrades at the existing facilities. And the term of this is, I want to tell you 20 years, but definitely more than 5.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, apologies, Chair.
Sure.
The County Commission did approve each of these three agreements at their meeting on December 5th.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any questions on this one, colleagues? All right, hearing and seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Item number 15 is a resolution authorizing the City of Grand Rapids, Kent County Convention and Arena Authority to enter into a contract with Live Nation for promotion and booking services for Acrisure Amphitheater.
Support.
All right, moved and support. Anything to add, Ms. Behrens?
Just again, with the extension of Live Nation providing these services, which they currently do for Van Andel, they are bringing, again, a capital contribution to construction of the amphitheater.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, colleagues?
Do we know how much that is?
At least 20 million. It's in the memo. It's 20 million, James.
Okay.
Confirms for me, thank you.
Thank you. All right, hearing and seeing no other questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. The last item pertaining to this general theme here, we've got number 16, which is a resolution authorizing the City of Grand Rapids, Kent County Convention and Arena Authority to enter into a purchase agreement with the Downtown Development Authority and Grant Action 2.0 for the purchase of Amway Stadium.
So moved. Support.
All right, moved and supported.
Final item before you. So in order to facilitate construction of the Amway Stadium over there on the west side, there was some activity by a number of the project partners to assemble the necessary real estate. So this is allowing that all to be transferred ultimately upon construction to the CAA, who will own and manage that facility.
Great, okay, thanks. Questions, colleagues? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Item number 17, we've got a resolution approving a construction agreement and accepting a public utilities easement for 5725 52nd Street Southeast.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
So a commercial storage facility is being developed at this address, which is in Cascade Township, that requires extension of our public water main. So before you is the construction agreement that will facilitate that extension, and also requesting your acceptance of the easement covering the utility for our future maintenance purposes.
Okay, thanks. Any questions, colleagues? All righty, hearing, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That carries. And that'll bring us to our last item, number 18. We've got a resolution approving a sidewalk easement at 1728th Street Southeast for the nominal consideration of $1.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
A new business is being constructed at this property, which is located at the southeast corner of 28th and Kalamazoo. There's an existing sidewalk that will be replaced as part of the development, and a portion of it will extend beyond the existing right-of-way. So requesting your acceptance of this sidewalk easement covering that portion and allowing for that sidewalk connection to be made.
All right, thank you. Any questions, colleagues? All right, hearing and seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That carries. So that will conclude our scheduled business items here. Yes, Mr. City Clerk.
Just a scheduling note, we're not going to start committee of the whole until 10:15. So for those that are watching online or here in the room with us, just we're starting about 15 minutes late today.
Great, thank you. You beat me to it. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. It's 9:45.
morning, everyone, and welcome to our last Committee of the Whole meeting for the year of 2024. We're delighted to have you here. Commissioners, a couple things. We have 5 action items before us today, 2 briefings. We have a guest that we'll invite up later on to share some words with us. And then later on today, we have the public safety meeting at 12:30 in these chambers, and then our commission meeting today is at 2 p.m. again in these chambers. There will be a little reception afterwards, and then we're back in here tonight at 7 p.m. for the official oath of office for those who were elected in November. So busy day for all of us, but also a really exciting day as we make a significant transition around this body. So with that, I'll get started with the first item before us. This is a resolution establishing a commercial redevelopment district pursuant to PA 255 for 2 Fulton Street West LLC at 2 Fulton Street West. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support?
All right, moved and supported. Hello, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The next item is related, if that's okay. I'll just briefly touch on it. So these 2 items came before your last meeting for a public hearing. So this is an $8 million project with about $2.1 million of construction costs going in the former UICA building, where Bamboo, which is a company out of the east side supporting entrepreneurs, will be moving into that space. The inclusion plan efforts on this project are about 25%, or $687,500, and then they're receiving, or if approved, would receive a 12-year exemption for this building.
Thank you. So commissioners, we did have a public hearing. I know several of us have met with the owners of Bamboo, and we're excited to see them potentially move to Grand Rapids. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, that will take us to the companion item. That's a resolution approving an application for a 12-year commercial facilities exemption certificate pursuant to PA 255 of 1978 for the same project located at 2 Fulton Street West. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support?
All right, moved and supported. Commissioners, any additional questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, next that will take us to a resolution approving the adjusted city water and sewer rates. And this is in accordance with our 2024 water and sewer rate study. Can I get a motion?
Support?
All right, moved and supported. Let's talk water sewer rates.
Morning, Commission.
Good morning.
So the resolution before you is approving the recommended water and sewer rate adjustments that would go into effect on January 1st of the new year. This resolution is specifically for the City of Grand Rapids rate adjustments. So for water, that is 4.34% increase, and for sewer, we're looking at a 2.15% increase. These were presented at a briefing last month on November 12th. We did have a 30-day public comment period. We did not receive any direct public comments via email or phone calls. However, we did public tabling in libraries for the first time this year, and I spoke with 9 individuals over the course of 4 weeks during that public comment period, and I would say 3 of them expressed disapproval of any raising of the rates. 3 of them were supportive of the rate changes upon hearing about what investments we are making, particularly on our lead line replacement program, and then 3 of them did not feel strongly one way or the other. They were just curious about learning how our water system works, how our sewer system works, and how these rates are determined.
Great, thanks. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, next that will take us to a resolution approving water and sewer rates in accordance with the 2024 rate review for the retail and wholesale partner communities of our city's water supply system and our sanitary sewer system. Can I get a motion? Support. All right, moved and supported. Any additional information about this?
Yeah, so this resolution is approving the rate adjustments for the 11 other communities that are on our system. Each community has their own changing rates, but as a system as a whole, the average increase for water is 2.8% and the average increase for sewer is 2.91%.
Great, thank you. All right, commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, that will take us to a resolution setting the date to consider adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 73, Title 11 of City Code entitled Urban Ag, to update the Urban Agricultural Committee membership and authorizing publication of the proposed ordinance. Can I get a motion? Support. All right, moved and supported. We have Ms. Bohach here. I know this has been a topic that has been discussed in our appointments committee with feedback from the members of our Urban Ag Committee before it came to us today to set this date for consideration.
Yeah, so this establishes January 14th as the date to actually adopt proposed amendments that would reduce the number of members on the committee as well as eliminate specific representation of designated community entities. The committee has had great success since its inception in 2017 and has done some reflection on its work, looked at its bylaws, and also moving forward for the new year, looking at its structure as well as its purpose. And there's been some challenges in terms of obtaining and retaining members to the actual committee. And it was a recommendation that they have made, and as the mayor indicates, the committee on appointments actually had a discussion about this at their December 3rd meeting. And the change would reduce the number of members from 13 to 9. It would retain appointments for each of the 6 commission members, commissioners' appointments. It would reduce the mayor's appointments from 4 to 2 and would reduce the city manager's appointments from 3 to 1 in order to make up to get to that number of 9. It would eliminate the specific designations for entities, including the Blandford Nature Center, Grand Rapids Public Schools, and Kent County. It doesn't mean that folks from those entities could not participate. It just removes that to make more flexibility for who is able to be appointed. And then for the city manager's appointment, currently there are 2 staff members, and it would be reduced to having just 1 staff member that's appointed to make sure that we have that good balance of residents and community members to staff input. And so these were the changes that were recommended and discussed at the Committee on Appointments, and the ordinance is written in that manner for consideration on the 14th. I know that the Committee on Appointments was supportive of this work that aligns with other wards that have actually done reductions in the numbers to make their quorum, to meet quorums and be more effective in their work. But they did also indicate they'd like to revisit this at a later date in terms of as the community master plan rolls out, implementation of that, and efforts with our sustainability office to relook at or revisit the purpose of the committee at a later date.
Thank you. I'm glad to see this come forward. I think back to when we started the Urban Act Committee and our city was in a very different place. Some of you may remember we had just gotten through a pretty lengthy and contentious debate about backyard chickens. Some thought we'd have feral chickens running down our streets and taking over our city. And we wanted to really bring some experts around a space to assess ordinance changes, but also look at some of the other recommendations related to backyard chickens and bees, where people could have bees, looking at how do we expand community gardens, how do we address issues around food deserts. We've made a lot of progress since then. I believe the work of this committee has been really helpful in helping us move forward. But the city is clearly in a very different place today than it was, 9-10 years ago. So I'm glad to see some of the changes, and I anticipate in the years ahead, this committee will be reassessed and changes likely will happen again. And I really think that's good practice to look at our committees and our committee structures. I think some committees that were established 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they were important for that season in our city, but ultimately need to change, or we need to make adjustments based on the needs of our city today versus then. So I'm very supportive of this, but I also want to say thank you to the appointments for working on this. So thank you. Commissioners, any additional questions or comments? Commissioner?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just add thank you for this work, Ms. Bohach. I know this has been, it's got to be the staff work in between, and then the meetings happen and you come back. And also, I would just say this is colleagues and future discussions, this is reflective of some of the work that we did with Vital Streets. Obviously, a different way that was put into place, but I think that the challenge is when you make the determination of who's eligible more narrow, we just don't give ourselves that flexibility, and so I think we've been able to change that and then adjust the total number on Vital Streets as well, and so I think this is, part of our ongoing process, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. All right, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it carries. All right, Commissioners, that will quickly take us to our two briefings that we have today. We have a briefing and update on the Parks Millage. This is our annual update. And then second, we have a Climate Action and Adaptation Plan draft review. So we'll get started with the first one. I'm glad that I'm around this table still to hear this. Many of you know this has been near and dear in my heart for a long time, both our Parks Department, but also the millage and the work that the funds from the millage has enabled us to do. So I'll turn it over to our Parks Director to kick us off, and all of you should have a presentation in front of you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Commissioners. It's a privilege to be here today with you to introduce this annual Parks Millage update. Mayor, we had the opportunity to be together yesterday afternoon in a meeting at which you shared that parks are the great connector. We couldn't agree more in the Parks and Recreation Department, and my hope today is that you see that through this annual update, we have made significant connections to a great deal of residents across our entire city that have absolutely enriched the design process over the years for the implementation of some really important and meaningful and impactful projects. We hope today that you also see some really impactful and meaningful connections that we have made to funders like the Mitten Foundation that have come alongside of us and helped us to leverage dollar for dollar the millage investment that residents have committed to over the years as well. And then finally, my hope today too is that you see some really important connections that we have made with the best and the brightest in our community that have stepped up and said, we want to come and work for the City of Grand Rapids to help implement and make some of these improvements. And so here to share with you today these improvements, I've got Ms. Carrie Enriquez, our project manager, Ms. Victoria Keenan, and Mr. Dervin Figueroa, who will be presenting this update with you today. Great. So, Carrie.
Thank you. Hello, welcome, and thank you for your work.
Good morning, everyone. So just to kind of start, we wanted to go back a little bit in time to 2019, and thanks to the citizens of Grand Rapids, we had an evergreen millage that was approved that provides us over $7 million annually for improvements in our park system. So if we break that down into all the different divisions, so for capital projects, we have a total of $3.5 million for improvements. 2.7 of that is for actual park improvements every year, and then there's $800,000 in debt service to an $11 million bond that we took out to accelerate some of our projects. We have a little over $1 million for pool operations of our 3 pools, and then $1 million for park maintenance of our 90-plus parks and trail systems, and then a little over $500,000 for recreation. And some of that goes towards our free summer camp program that we have at multiple park spaces. And there is some unassigned that allows us flexibility when grants come up and potential partnerships. So looking at our fiscal year 24 impact, just to highlight an item from each of those divisions. So we have leveraged over $43 million of investment in our park system. So looking at planning, design, and construction. For pool operations, we had all 3 pools fully staffed, and we had record attendance at them. For park maintenance, we have recently implemented a new software system that helps drive our work orders for a priority system, as well as making it more efficient. And then for our recreation programming, looking at that summer camp participants, we had over 500 of those kids in the community attend those. So river activation highlights. So specifically, over the summer paddling day camp, we had over 800 participants, and that was at no cost. Family Paddle Night continued, which was at Riverside Park. We had over 400 participants there. And then for kayaking, we did have some monthly drop-in activities at Riverside Park, where we had over 200 participants. And then we also partnered with Friends of Grand Rapids Parks, GR Running Tours, and Elgro and others for some guided kayak trips. So looking specifically at that $43 million, of leveraged funding. It's a mix of private and public funding. To highlight a few of them specifically, when it comes to the private funding, as David mentioned, the Mitten Foundation has given money for Richmond Park. And then also we've been working with fans of Valley Field for Sullivan Field. And there is a lot of support from Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. for the Greenway projects at Leonard Ann and Oxford Trail, and also the Fulton to Wealthy Trail, as well as grants from the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, as well as the MEDC. So to talk about how we come up with our projects, our 5-year capital plan. We have an equity-centered capital investment plan. So we list all of our park spaces, and they all get a score based on their community characteristics, and then a score based on their park characteristics. So community characteristics, that is based on census tract information. So it looks at racially concentrated areas of poverty. It looks at youth population, senior population, population density, neighborhood safety statistics, and also park access. So that, again, based on the census tract, every park gets a score for that. And then we look at our park characteristic scoring. So that is more asset management based. That's looking at when is the last time we made improvements in a park space, how much was that for, what is the remaining life on the investments in that park, what is the potential for green infrastructure, climate resiliency improvements in the park. So we add those two scores together, and then we get our ranking from 1 down to know how we should be investing. Understanding, there is some flexibility, again, kind of dependent on what grants we get and additional partnerships. So looking at fiscal year 24 completed projects, to highlight a couple, so Highland Park, we did install new multi-sport courts there. So it was bike polo, roller hockey, as well as basketball courts, and reconstruction of the parking lot. And we also completed our comprehensive dog park study. So the size of our city, we need 2 additional dog parks to be on average with other communities our size. So we did a full study to look at where should those dog parks go, what are the design guidelines for those dog park spaces moving forward. So upcoming projects. So in the next 2 years, there's a lot going on. The pictures here on the right are of Canal Park, which is going out to bid this week for construction to start in the spring. That is a full park reconstruction focusing on access to the river, new play space, as well as terrace seating and more spaces for the community to be, as well as Hausman Field. So that is a GRPS site, but with our joint use, we're able to make improvements and investments in that playground area, and we will be doing that as a community build. This is a continuation of that list. So we also have Sullivan Field continuing as additional funds are being raised for improvements to the grandstand as well as the park space in general. Plaza Roosevelt, the approval of that contractor is going to City Commission today. And so that work will start in the spring, and that is a brand new park space in our system. So looking beyond the next 2 years, for the 3 years after that, I think to highlight, we're redoing 5 parking lots and also circulation plans in our park spaces, so really focusing on the asset management component of our parks. Specifically, McKay-JC and Riverside will have all new parking lots and all new circulation through that space. And then 2 new parks. So looking at 32nd Street, so that's on 32nd, just east of Kalamazoo, and then Boston Square, both of those looking at new park spaces for the community. So there are 3 projects that we're going to spotlight. I will do the first, and then I'll pass it over to my colleagues, Victoria and Dervin. So we do have $1.5 million for planning funds for Silver Creek Corridor and Plaster Creek Trail. You can see the Silver Creek is the blue line at the top, and then Plaster Creek is the green and blue one below. So looking at Silver Creek, the creek itself is underground, so it is in pipes and culverts for over 95% of its length. And then you can see the corridor space, so that is the walk shed for that creek. So this planning that we're going to be working on is looking at, are there potential areas where we could daylight this creek along its lifespan? Is there a new trail system that could be built to connect the community to itself and then connect the community to some of these other trail systems? So connect it to Plaster Creek Trail, connect it to Oxford Trail, and then eventually to the Riverwalk downtown and beyond. And then the third thing, which is really the most important, is looking and working with the community to determine improvements and investments that can help improve the economic, social, and environmental outcomes for this community. So looking at planning and zoning regulations, looking at the potential for wealth building in this community, small businesses, and we're really excited that is just starting right now. And then Plaster Creek is tied with that as well because it's a trail system too. So in this image, you can see the green is the existing trail components, and we do have some gaps that are shown in blue. So looking at closing those gap spaces and then also developing some trail design guidelines for our neighborhood trail system. So with that, I will pass it over to Victoria.
Hi everyone, I'm Victoria Keenan. I'm the Partnerships and Development Coordinator with the Parks Department. I'm really excited to be here sharing about the Oxford Trail Project. To begin, I just want to draw awareness to where this trail is located. So it's located in the southwest side of Grand Rapids. It connects to the Roosevelt Park neighborhood, the Black Hills neighborhood, and the Southwest area neighborhood. If I can draw your awareness to the map on the screen, what's in orange is the existing trail, and solid orange is where improvements are going to be made during this phase. The red is where extensions are going to be made in the trail during this phase, and the blue are future trail extensions for future phases. The goal of this project is really to increase accessibility to this trail. It's to increase connectivity through these communities to the river and to downtown, and also increase recreation opportunities in these communities. So to go over a few of the project features, a full trail reconstruction of what is in that solid orange, trail extensions, like I mentioned. In this phase, the trail will be extended to Godfrey at some of the access points, as well as extended to Hall Street, so deeper into that Roosevelt Park community. The ultimate goal is to have it connect even further south to Roosevelt Park, and then create some new access points on the north end to Wealthy Street. There will also be a linear park space that will feature a fitness court, a playground, some rentable community event space, seating and shade, as well as we're planning to implement some community-centered art into the space as well, so cultural amenities. Like I said, improved access points, and there will also be a restroom. The project investment here is $8 million from Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc., so that's that Greenway funding, $1 million of city ARPA to make the total investment of $9 million. This project will begin construction spring of next year and complete before the end of 2026. And we also did want to thank our project partners, Factory Yards, for allowing us an easement on their property. Again, this will improve access points to the trail and make that trail extension possible, as well as allow us to make some improvements on the existing trail site. So we wanted to give some high-level numbers of our community engagement throughout this process. So engagement for planning design took place summer of 2024. I'm not going to go over all these numbers, but I did want to highlight a few key points. So we hosted 6 mini events in these communities. So these were planned and facilitated by our neighborhood leaders, which I'll get into in the next slide. And our goal for engagement was to really meet people authentically and where they are, and to create accessible and equitable access points to the design and planning phase of this project. And so these mini events allowed us to do that. So they were identified and organized by our neighborhood leaders based on what they thought the community needs were and what the gaps were for engagement in this area. So for example, we hosted a Black Voices on the River event where folks were able to get on the trail and identify in real time access or opportunity points on the trail. We also hosted a family movie night at Cesar Chavez Elementary, hearing community needs of just wanting like more family-centered engagement activities, and so folks were able to engage in that way. We hosted a roll, walk, bike, and talk event that allowed folks to experience, again, that trail in real time and be able to give on-site suggestions and input. We also hosted 3 community events. So these were kind of like larger scale community share outs where we were able to check in with community and share out where we were in the design and planning phase, and they were able to either affirm and validate what we were showing or provide more clarity if what we were showing didn't fully represent their needs. And so, again, this allowed us to check in. It allowed us to create deeper connections with the community and just make sure that as the design and planning phase was progressing, that we were providing real-time updates to folks. We also provided kind of like a mixed media approach to engagement based on some data that we had collected on how folks want to be engaged. So this included like physical media, flyers, canvassing, as well as digital and online opportunities. I wanted to point out that all of these materials were in English and Spanish, and that we did have Spanish translation and services on site at all of these events as well. And then the last slide, on this project, we really wanted to showcase how community voice was embedded into this project. And so we used a neighborhood leaders model. These folks played a critical role in ensuring that the community voice remained center of this project and was, again, at the center of the engagement process. So these folks engaged directly with the community in several different ways. Door-to-door canvassing, again, they planned and hosted those pop-up events that I talked about. They also fostered a lot of meaningful conversations, either at those events or just in their communities, living their day-to-day lives. I know that I was at a couple community meetings where folks in their professional roles were sharing about this project and excited, and it really kind of created a sense of community ownership and that folks were, working on this project in a really meaningful and personal way. They helped to guide the planning and engagement team throughout this process and inform the needs of the community as well. And so if we weren't getting something right through the engagement process, they were able to, correct us and inform us of how to move forward. And so we really wanted to uplift these folks in this space and give an opportunity to highlight their leadership in their communities, because this project couldn't have been possible or wouldn't have had the success it did without these folks. And we also wanted to give a brief spotlight to Granville Avenue Arts and Humanities, a nonprofit organization in the Roosevelt Park community that also helped guide us through this engagement process. Again, just leveraging their networks, and they were able to share with us how to best engage the community and some needs that they had identified. And with that, I will hand it over to my coworker, Dervin. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Erwin Figueiredo. I have the pleasure of serving as the Community Engagement Specialist for the Parks and Rec Department. And the next project we're spotlighting is the highly anticipated Martin Luther King Jr. Park Lodge project. It's both an exciting time for this project as we have officially broke ground and construction is underway for that. And so this new lodge building has been 100 years in the making. The previous lodge was built in the early 1920s. This lodge building is the first of its kind in our park system, and it will be a 25,000 square foot facility, which is about 5 times bigger than the previous lodge. And then just to go over some project features there, the lodge building itself is intended to be a 4-season recreational facility. It'll feature 2 community office spaces, one of which is our very own Our Community's Children. The other office space will be for the Neighborhood Association, formerly known as the King Parks Neighbors. We'll also have 2 rentable classrooms, and we call those classrooms, but they're really party rooms. They're intended to be gathering spaces for about 30 people or so. We'll feature countertop space and also a refrigerator there for those accommodations. And we'll also have a rentable event space. And this event space has room for about 200 guests or so in banquet-style seating. And we intentionally elevated our design standards for an elegant and sophisticated look and feel, which is a step above traditional municipal buildings. Then we'll also have a fitness room for different recreation offerings, and we'll also feature a gymnasium. The gymnasium itself features an NBA-sized full-court basketball facility that has endless potential for different programming there. And then also the new pool house. The new pool house itself will completely change the user experience in terms of its entry and exit points. And it'll feature a staff break room area, reception desk, and changing areas as well. And then for the new playground, it will be a $1 million playground that will be off of Benjamin Avenue, which is a safer corner of the park space itself. And then for the fitness loop, it's intended to be a multi-generational amenity with both standalone workout equipment and a CrossFit area as well. And then we'll also have the reconstructed parking lot, which will add more spaces for folks. And then we have relocated and expanded community garden. And this was a partnership with Jade Rabbit, which was founded by Alita Kelly, a long-standing Third Ward resident. It'll feature 12 garden beds, seating, and a shade for storage. And then I'd like to quickly walk you through a timeline of these projects, just to give an update for that as well, of these phases rather. And so for the pool locker room itself, it will be built by 2025 pool season. The parking lot will come in the summer of 2025. The fitness loop will be completed later in that summer of 2025. The new playground will be open for use by fall of 2025. And the new lodge building itself is scheduled to open at the end of 2025/early 2026. And the community garden will be ready for the 2026 planting season. And then here on this slide, we also show the project investment. And really, we just want to thank all of our partners, and a special thanks to our millage supporters and our city and state leaders for the city funding and state appropriation funding, because without that support, this project truly wouldn't be realized as it is here today. And then engagement. So we show data points here on the left, but first I'd like to walk you through the site plan that we show on this screen as well. First, the expanded parking lot, as I mentioned, will provide more parking spaces for folks. And then we show here also the new lodge building itself in a brown box. I'd like to draw your attention to the white dash box that's in the center of the screen as well. And that is the old footprint of the previous lodge, just to give you context to how much bigger the new lodge will be. To the south of that will be our new pool locker room facility, and in between those two spaces, we intentionally created a plaza area to host different types of markets or different events in the park space as well that are fond of that neighborhood as well. And then I'd also like to call out the shade sales. The shade sales was a direct feedback that we heard from neighbors in wanting more shade in the pool space as well. So we're sure to implement that as well. And then pointing to the southwest corner of the site plan here is our fitness loop. You can see where we've called out the standalone kind of workout equipment, and also the bigger paved area in that space will be where the CrossFit component is. And then pointing to the southeast corner of the map, you can see the new and expanded playground that will be there. Again, that was intended to be located there off of Benjamin Avenue, with the one-way being there. And then we have our movie lawn space, which could be a really cool amenity for this site plan as well. We'll be able to project movies right off of the building there as well. And then lastly, the community garden, we call that out up top as well. And so engagement, while the data points on the left are significant, there's so much more to be told here. Formal engagement dates back to our 2019 quality of life study, where neighbors exposed the underutilization of the park space and the lodge building itself. They also shared a desire for a multi-purpose use of the lodge, and they expressed the need for youth-focused programming. After the quality of life study, we proceeded to conduct over 45 different touch points with community. These included engaging neighbors on renovating versus rebuilding the previous lodge building. We then formed a 12-person community stakeholder committee that was representative of this community, and we continuously asked neighbors for their input and priorities during the 4-year design phase. We engaged neighbors using several strategies to include in-person questionnaires, surveys, both online and paper versions of those. We held focus groups, we hung up door hangers, and we did several rounds of postcards as well. And we even created a project webpage for ease of information access for this transformative project. Overall, we understood the significance and importance of this project, and were intentional about meeting people where they are throughout their entire 4+ year engagement process. If you heard me say the word intention a lot today, it's because that's the theme I'd like you all to leave with here today. I'm proud to say that our team carried intentionality throughout this entire effort, and both the process and the project reflect that. And with that, I'd like to pass the mic back over to my project manager, Carrie Enriquez.
Great. So we wanted to talk a little bit about emerging opportunities with the Parks Department. So at Indian Trails Golf Course, there is an entertainment venue feasibility study that was done, and there will be a presentation on that to City Commission in early 2025. In addition, continuing to work with GR Pickleball at the potential opportunity for pickleball court expansion at Belknap Park, and then also continuing on the Greenway Trail system. So understanding DGRI was able to bring in $55 million for greenway improvements throughout all of Kent County. So being able to focus on the parks and trail system that we have here in Grand Rapids to further the work that they provided funding for. And then celebrating success. So we've talked about a lot of projects, and there's a lot going on. We've got, as I mentioned before, the over $43 million in leverage fund, also $11 million in bond fund, and then $2.7 million in the park millage every year that we're working on projects over the next 2 years. I really wanted to highlight the critical support from the Grand Rapids residents, again, for passing that millage, originally in 2013, then again in 2019, the Evergreen. And then also for those same residents who continue to come to our events, provide input on those park spaces to ensure that these spaces are reflective of what the community wants. Thanks to the Grand Rapids Parks Advisory Board and their continued support for our department. And we've listed some of the key partnerships. There's a lot more than what's listed here, but some that we really wanted to highlight, again, is Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. and the DDA for their continued support and financially, and also with projects for us to be able to focus more on some of that downtown core area that we wouldn't be able to do without their funding. Fans of Valley Field, their continued support and fundraising and enthusiasm for Sullivan Field. The Friends of Grand Rapids Parks, their continued support on providing additional tree canopy, activating our park space, as well as providing thousands of volunteer hours to make improvements to those park areas. The Grand Rapids Pickleball Club and their work that they've done in investments at Belknap. The Granville Avenue Art and Humanities, and Steph Rosales specifically for her leadership on multiple projects that we've had in the Roosevelt Park area. The Right Place, they've provided funding for both Canal and Sullivan through the MEDC grant, and then we will get to the Mitten Foundation in a little bit, but I wanted to see that as the end of our presentation if there were any questions.
All right, thank you. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Go ahead, Commissioner, go ahead.
Just a quick one. I just want to say thank you to you personally, Carrie. I know we've been, obviously saw a number of things. I think the parking and Huff Park and Riverside, those will be, from the second ward perspective, will certainly be appreciated. And everybody, just because it's not your ward, you can go to all the parks and all parts of the city, but I know we hear that from our neighbors. But I want to say in particular, thank you for your work and constant communication about the improvements at Ball Perkins, because I learned so much from you about all the nuances of, this park space, but it's also consumers' energy and things that we had to move through. And so it's been a lot, but through that whole time, you've stayed connected with neighbors there, and I just personally appreciate that. So thanks. And thank you all for the presentation. I was just going to write Steph Rosales after this, certainly here, and thinking about all the people who are also in the audience that I know we'll hear from in a little bit. But that the MLK Lodge, I remember going to, I don't know if they called it the swim house back in the day at Garfield Park, but it didn't look like that. There was steel lockers and you put 25 cents in. I remember my aunt taking us. And so to be able to have these amenities, just really appreciate your work. Thank you for your work, Mayor, as well. And so it's I know you'll come back for a lot of these different things. And just, of course, thank you to the residents, as you have continued to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner?
Thank you so much for the presentation update. Very excellent and exciting news. Just one follow-up for MLK. Obviously has been more closely involved with or attuned to that project. Amazing updates on where the old lodge used to be. Are there any planned updates for the other parts of the park? I'm thinking the basketball courts, the tennis courts. Any plans in that side of the park?
Yep, there's nothing that's farther north of the park space. Our investment is really focusing on the southern half of it. We are getting LEED accredited for the building, so we had to kind of limit where our area was for that. But we do, we'll continually look for improvements at the basketball court and then the tennis court. And just so everyone is aware, so the tennis court has 8 courts right now, and so that will drop down to 5 because of the parking lot expansion that is needed for that. But we do have plans to come back and resurface the tennis court, and also, I don't want to make promises on pickleball, but that's been talked about. So, but
I was going to bring up that rumor.
Yeah, people. That's the one thing everyone's going to take away from this presentation: is pickleball at MLK. So.
Okay, great, and super excited to hear the entertainment study outcomes in the new year. So, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. All right, Commissioner Goy.
Thank you for your amazing presentation. And I was reflecting on this because when I swam in Franklin Pool in 1960, this is nothing like that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. And I'll add just a couple final thoughts. I want to say thanks to, I'm sitting here thinking about when I first ran for office and our parks were falling apart, our pools were closed, and having been a part of helping get Friends of Grand Rapids off the ground and then run the 2 campaigns to commit funds for our parks. I look back and I look at our parks today and we've done what we promised. We've invested in every single park. It's impacted the neighborhood surrounding those parks, and most importantly, it's impacted the children who call those neighborhoods home. So I'm going to add my thanks to the entire city team that has helped do the work and execute the vision that we set out so long ago. But as I've said before, it wasn't without a ton of partners in this community and the residents who stepped up to say yes. So I'm glad today that we're joined by one of those key partners with the Mitten Foundation. They have been essential in helping us move forward some of our goals in the West Side and again with some of our neighborhood parks. So I'm just going to say thank you. It's really a joy to sit here and to see the impact of that work all over our city. And then my last point around trails. Commissioners, if you haven't gotten out there on our trails, I encourage you to do so. I've been out there a few times on my bike, and when you see it firsthand, where the disconnection points are, where we need to do a better job around maintenance, where the opportunities are, it really gives you a clear vision of what the work is that lies ahead. I'm glad to see the investment in the trail. I'm going out to the southeast side. I hope someday it goes beyond Hall. I hope we're able to get access to some of that consumers' property or ITC and get all the way out to 28th Street and connect with Wyoming and Kentwood and their trail system. And just hopefully the work that we're doing around trails downtown and with the county will just continue to grow. So thank you for your work. Thanks.
Mayor.
City Manager?
Thank you. And I too want to thank the Parks Department for this very comprehensive and thorough update. It is partially reflective of all the work that goes on, but a good representation of the capital projects. And if I could just highlight on slide 2, if you can go back to that slide, Carrie, I think what helped to accelerate some of the capital improvements, as the mayor said, certainly our partners in leverage from the slide. Yeah,
Are you looking for this one?
This one here.
Oh, that one.
What?
The one that you said.
Yep.
So 2.
That one.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that number 2. Certainly. The leverage funding from state and all of our partners, and but also a change in financial strategy here from the city that this DICE supported, and that would allow us, instead of just pay-go funding, the $2.7 million a year, the fact that we, for the first time ever, issued debt from the Parks millage. That debt service of $800,000 allowed us to do another $11 million in projects that would have had to be delayed and wait further out and scheduled out in the future. So many places of partnership, but also I wanted to thank this commission and our CFO and staff for figuring out a way to be a little bit more aggressive around the millage funding.
Thanks, City Manager. All right.
Thank
you.
All right, thank you, Carrie, Victoria, and Dervin for that presentation. At this point in time, I'd like to invite Julie from the Mitten Foundation up to join me. We are embarking on a new playground project in Richmond Park over the course of this next year, and the Mitten Foundation has generously come alongside the department to support this work with a $50,000 donation. And so I'd like to ask Julie to say a few remarks, and then Mayor, if you would join us down here to accept that donation.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name is Julie Green with the Mitten Foundation, and first of all, thank you to Carrie and David for inviting us here today. When Paul Debry and I proposed the idea to the Mitten Foundation board for a Fun for All space at Richmond Park, I imagined our biggest hurdle would be the red tape of working with a government entity. I could not have been more wrong. From our first contact with Grand Rapids Parks and Rec team, we were welcomed with excitement, support, and given hands-on involvement with the project and the chance to engage with our neighbors. The Richmond Park Fun for All project started with an idea to merely change part of the playground space to a universally accessible poured rubber surface, a place where kids and adults with mobility challenges feel the invaluable inclusion that outdoor play offers. Every child deserves that chance and place to feel included. And while we were fundraising, through a pandemic, no less, we took notice of the city's dedication to adding universally accessible spaces and equipment to other park renovation projects by leveraging a strongly supported millage. Thank you. With the amazing work of the Parks and Recs team and community support, our little project grew leaps and bounds beyond my wildest dreams to truly make Richmond Park what I believe to be the most universally accessible park in Grand Rapids. I would like to give my heartfelt thanks to everyone who supported this project with the Mitten Foundation through donations and volunteer hours, to the City of Grand Rapids. Wow, you made that fun. I can't wait to see the results. We're thrilled and excited to be neighbors to this park. On a personal note, Madam Mayor, congratulations on surpassing your goal for tree canopy, and thank you for your dedication to all of our green spaces in Grand Rapids. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
So, Julie, if you've got other board members that would like to join us, I invite you to come on up and present the check to the mayor.
Thank you. Thanks, Fred. Appreciate you. Thanks for being here. You didn't bring a
Oh, no.
How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. My goodness. All right, where do you want to go? In front? All right.
You're the boss.
All right. For 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. Steve, should we like? The real check, I think I'll hand that to my partner. Thank you for being here. Let's set it on my desk. Thank you again, everyone, for this great update. All right, that will take us to our next update, and this is a briefing on the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan draft, and I'll turn it over to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We're pleased today to give an update on this effort consistent with our strategic plan and as also highlighted the master plan. Today, we just want to give a general awareness. I know there have been a lot of community conversations about some of the anticipated changes or envisioned changes, and we want to give this body an update, and there'll be time for the new city commission to consider. Once you get your feedback, it goes back to committee, any of the input after after staff has drafted or any revisions, and then ultimately for adoption. So looking forward to your feedback today and conversation. So with that, pleased to turn it over to our interim Chief Sustainability Officer, Ms. Annabelle Wilkinson, who I'm always pleased to introduce because she started her career here as an intern and has really progressed up the ranks and is doing a fine job acting for us now. Ms. Wilkinson.
Thank you, City Manager. Good morning, Commissioners. Today I'm going to provide an update on our Climate Action Adaptation Plan draft. We're going to have a brief overview, a look at our process, the plan framework, review the goals and strategies, as well as some example actions that are included in the plan, as well as actions that have notable policy consideration, and then next steps in our process. So the reason why we're pursuing this climate action adaptation plan is because it is a key strategy in our strategic plan that'll help us reduce carbon emissions, support climate adaptation, and increase climate resiliency. And again, that climate action adaptation plan is really a roadmap for how the community of Grand Rapids is going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also prepare for the impacts of climate change. This plan is being co-created in partnership with community stakeholders and is based on resident feedback. And its primary objective is to also meet our community-wide science-based targets. And that is 62.8% per capita greenhouse gas reduction community-wide by 2030 from our 2019 baseline emissions, as well as 100% per capita by 2050. And what we like to call out is that we as the city don't have a lot of local control. You know, our government operations and our emissions are only 2.21% of our community-wide emissions. So this is really a community-wide plan that's only going to be made possible with community buy-in as well as preceding action. But the city will act as a leader in this work through this plan by modeling our emissions reductions in our municipal facilities and fleet, implementing actions that are under local control, and also advocating for the legislative and regulatory changes that are necessary to meet the goals and the targets that we've established, as well as bringing community stakeholders to the table together to move innovative solutions and make progress towards these actions and goals. Now, one of the key intersections for the Climate Action Adaptation Plan is with our Community Master Plan. This climate plan includes 52 strategies and actions that correspond directly with our Community Master Plan across the chapters of great neighborhoods, vital business districts, a strong economy, and balanced mobility. And the CAP also incorporates engagement feedback from the Community Master Plan process that specifically called out climate change and environmental justice. And that's really how we began our process and timeline in 2022, is coordinating with the community master planning process, as well as reaching out to other community stakeholders, both to work on relationships for future engagement opportunities, but also for key sector expertise to bring to the table. For example, for the Kent County Food Policy Council for our food systems chapter. In 2023, we moved into visioning. So really trying to understand what community's vision was, how climate change impacts them, as well as the priorities they have for this plan and what they see in a just climate future. We asked that through our online survey, as well as a launch party. During that time, we conducted a greenhouse gas emissions inventory to really understand what are the key sectors of greenhouse gas emissions and where are they coming from. And once we understood those sectors, we formed climate advisory teams that didn't already have key experts to join us in that work. So we created a residential buildings climate advisory team, a buildings, commercial buildings, as well as transportation climate advisory team. From there, those climate advisory teams created those draft strategies and actions for consideration, and those chapters were brought back to community to get their feedback again. We held chapter-specific feedback sessions, as well as had an online survey, one-on-one interviews with community stakeholders, and we conducted a climate risk and vulnerability assessment where we also had focus groups with our most vulnerable community members to understand how they'd be impacted by the hazards like heat and flooding. And now we're moving into our plan development phase. We've incorporated that public feedback from those 2 rounds. We've drafted a plan, and we're going back again to see if we heard community correctly. We'll be having our online surveys available now on our website, as well as our updated draft, and we'll be hosting community workshops in the new year. In 2025, we'll be moving more towards implementation, analyzing our greenhouse gas reduction potential for those actions so we can prioritize the actions that need to come first, as well as developing an implementation strategy that incorporates external community stakeholders to get their buy-in into this process as responsible parties. And again, just a brief overview of our engagement. We had 3 rounds of engagement. We're collaborating with local community-based organizations to make sure that we're on the ground in community, moving from that visioning and brainstorming to responsive and providing feedback on chapters, as well as partnering with the community master plan process. And some of the engagement techniques that have been used have been in-person workshops, virtual meetings, attending and tabling at community events that are already established, one-on-one interviews, focus groups focusing on those most vulnerable populations, like our unhoused and youth, online surveys, and climate advisory teams. So a little bit of an overview for our plan framework. We have 6 chapters within this plan. This is identified through our greenhouse gas emissions inventory identification of those largest emitting greenhouse gas sectors, as well as communities' priorities that were identified through the climate plan survey. And so those chapters revolve around energy systems, residential housing, buildings and industry, transportation and vital streets, nature-based solutions, and food systems. And so the structure of the plan focuses on goals, strategies, and actions. So our goals are those desired outcomes in specific sectors to achieve our community science-based targets and reduce the impacts of climate change. Now, a lot of the really specific goals that we'll see with numbers and percentages are from a high-impact analysis that was conducted in part with our consultant ICLEI, who worked with us on our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And so they really determined what are those key sectors and ways that we need to move to make progress towards those community-wide science-based targets. Now, our strategies are those major initiatives and services that need to be completed to make progress towards those goals. And then our actions, 195 of them, are programs, activities, and projects that'll push forward those strategies. And the themes that we see throughout this plan are health, resilience, equity, economic prosperity, and collaboration. So diving into the chapters, first of all, for energy systems, our goal is 80% electricity grid decarbonization by 2030 and increase the reliability and resilience of energy systems. Now, right off the bat, we can see that this is not something that we as a municipality have local control over. There are a number of challenges and barriers to addressing this goal. The state of Michigan is the primary regulator around energy utilities, specifically through legislation, as well as the Michigan Public Service Commission. And Consumers Energy is also the utility that provides nearly all electricity to our users in Grand Rapids. And so we have to rely on their ability to meet their voluntary emissions reductions and renewable energy goals to really see through electricity grid decarbonization. So pushing for that work is going to be a key aspect of the actions and strategies that we see. We also have outdated legislation that limits community solar opportunities and microgrids, and an increase in electrification efforts for vehicles as well as buildings in the future could affect grid capacity. So the strategies that we've identified to work towards these goals is increasing community stakeholders' access and understanding of energy systems, since they are often very complicated and inaccessible. Moving those community stakeholders, residents, businesses, and organizations' participation in the decision-making for energy systems like the Michigan Public Service Commission. Helping to decrease the cost of renewable energy, supporting the installation and removing barriers from solar or low to no emission technology. For Strategy 5, supporting the purchase of renewable and carbon-free energy like renewable energy credits, nurturing a clean energy economy, career development, as well as improving the resilience of the energy system. And so, as I mentioned, there are a lot of actions in this plan, but some that we're highlighting here as examples are creating a single education platform on all energy systems, increasing communities' participation in rulemaking and rate cases around Consumers Energy's integrated resource plan for the Michigan Public Service Commission, creating a solarized program for residents on educating for solar options, leveraging solar tax credits, and offering group-buy discounts to reduce the price, updating our city's zoning ordinance to remove zoning barriers in all districts for on-site solar, working collaboratively with community stakeholders for a Green Career Task Force to work on career development opportunities in clean energy sector, and also identifying and supporting active community hubs to transition to resilience hubs, prioritizing our neighborhoods of focus for emergencies. For our residential homes chapter, those potential goals, again, from that high impact analysis, is that 5% of all existing residential buildings need to reduce energy by 20% by 2030. All new residential buildings and 1% of existing buildings will meet International Energy Conservation Code of 2018. All new residential buildings and 11% of existing buildings are electrified per year, and also to improve the health and resilience of housing to the impacts of climate change. Again, there are significant barriers to achieving some of these goals based upon the legislative and regulatory frameworks that we have here. In the state of Michigan, the state of Michigan adopts the building and energy codes, and currently we're at a 2015 IECC code. So moving that forward will take a lot of advocacy. The building and energy codes prohibit local municipalities from requiring more energy efficiency measures than the state code allows. And existing buildings constructed before that 2015 code often lack energy efficiency measures like insulation. As you all know and are very aware, additional housing is needed to meet our housing gap, and we have a lack of contractors available for home repair and weatherization programs. And as we move down that electrification road, staff are concerned that existing housing and the electrification of existing housing could increase costs for construction and labor. So some strategies of the way that we're working towards these goals is increasing energy efficiency of housing, supporting the transition to clean energy in housing, increasing community capacity and access to home improvements, resources like weatherization, improving resident access to resources to make their homes more healthy and climate resilient, and also expanding the amount and variety of housing types across all price points. And that is a strategy that's pulled from the community master planning process. And some of those example actions would be expanding our EH0 home renovation pilot program, pursuing funding to improve roof conditions of homes to prepare for on-site solar, an online resource hub for residents to find housing-related resources, increasing access to stormwater management for residents for their homes, as well as expanding housing diversity based on income and housing type. For our buildings and industry chapter, our goals are 10% of all existing commercial buildings need to reduce energy 20% per year. 5% of existing commercial buildings are electrified per year. And also that we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from our industrial processes. And we'll look to identify that target as we move into our next greenhouse gas emissions inventory. Now, the challenges in this chapter are very similar to the challenges established in our residential chapter due to the state adopting the codes as well as the 2015 codes that are established. We do have a great resource in the Grand Rapids 2030 district that offers a significant amount of education, resources, and tools in the building sector. There's often minimal enrollment or compliance with data reporting for those programs. And something that we've heard from our commercial businesses is that energy management for buildings increases capacity needs as well as financial resources. And also efficiency projects may require a longer time frame for return on investment that businesses usually consider or can even finance. So the ways that we're looking from a strategy perspective to address these goals is to increase communities' awareness and capacity to look at how much energy they use and emissions they generate, reduce the amount of energy that are used in the existing buildings and emissions, ensure that new construction is low to zero emissions, high performing and climate resilient, and reducing the amount of energy used and emissions created from in those industrial processes. And so some examples of the actions that are included in this plan is enhancing access to and use of actual data in building development, design, construction, and operations, supporting the creation of a weatherization and efficiency program for commercial, industrial, and multifamily residential buildings to help reduce energy bills, continuing to advocate for stronger and more frequently updated state building and energy codes that emphasize that energy efficiency and electrification, and then also partnering with Vicinity Energy to continue to implement efficiency projects, but also pursue electrification of our STEAM district by sourcing from renewable energy. For our transportation chapter, our goals are 10% vehicle miles traveled reduced by 2030, 4.5% annual growth of on-road electrical vehicle adoption, as well as 22.5% of vehicle miles traveled is with electric vehicles by 2030. Now, there are some obviously very important cultural challenges and barriers to working towards those goals. Cultural attitudes, especially in Michigan, lean towards car dependency. Historically, our land use has prioritized vehicles over pedestrians and cyclists, and we don't have local control over our public transit system. That's owned and operated by the Rapid. And the Rapid faces a paradoxical challenge of hearing that they would like an increase in reliability and frequency for their ridership, but in order to have the funding to do that, they need an increased ridership. And there's also a lack of affordability and accessibility with electric vehicle options. So the strategies that we've been working on to address these goals are educating residents on all transportation options that are available and their environmental impacts, expanding and protecting a pedestrian network and amenities, building out a safe bicycle network, increasing bicycle lanes and access to bicycles, supporting regional projects that promote transit, focusing land use practices to make sure they're more accessible, dense, and less car-centric. And again, that strategy is pulled from the community master planning process. Promoting accessibility to electric and low to no emission vehicles, and electrifying our city fleet and providing support to other fleets within our municipal boundaries. And so some of those actions that are covered as examples are developing a pedestrian action plan, piloting a bicycle and e-bike voucher program, requiring a plan to encourage people to use modes of transportation other than driving alone when large developments are proposed in specific nodes, and providing education on how to access incentives for first-time EV buyers. For nature-based solutions, our goals are focusing on achieving our 40% tree canopy goal to increase carbon sequestration and ensuring that both people and the natural environment are healthy and resilient to the impacts of climate change. Some common challenges and barriers that we see in this section are that in order to increase tree coverage, private property is a greater opportunity. And outside of parks and forestry, there's no clear mandate on ecosystem management, which can lead to limited funding. Maintenance will also become a higher priority in the future as climate change and extreme weather events continue to increase that can cause urban tree canopy losses and harm for landscaping and green spaces. So some of the strategies that are established here and that also coincide with much of the work that the Parks and Recreation Strategic Master Plan works on is continuing to expand our tree planting, preservation, and maintenance programs, working on increasing equitable access to our green spaces, continuing to prioritize green infrastructure, as well as encouraging sustainable regenerative land management practices. So that could include prioritizing neighborhoods with a low tree equity score for tree plantings and habitat restoration, increasing walking access by improving sidewalks and trail connections, prioritizing our neighborhoods of focus, promoting moving from conventionally landscape areas to increasing green infrastructure, and pursuing an update to the zoning ordinance to include native and native adapted plantings. And lastly, our food systems. Reducing waste-related emissions by reducing food scraps into landfills, reducing solid waste, and encouraging sustainable consumption. And our second goal is to improve the health and resilience of food systems to the impacts of climate change. Now, some challenges and barriers that we see in this is that most of Grand Rapids' food supply is not grown within city limits, so that leaves us vulnerable to supply chain disruptions, and composting infrastructure can be limited. But another option that we need to think of is that Kent County's waste-to-energy facility will sunset in 2039 due to the 2023 Michigan energy legislation, and so that may impact our future greenhouse gas emissions inventories. Right now, our inventory shows a very low percentage of waste. That may change in the future, and so that is why this goal has been established for us to continue working towards that waste reduction in anticipation of those changes. So some strategies that we worked with, both with the Kent County Food Policy Council, as well as other stakeholders to cultivate, is to strengthen our local food economy to address food access and supply chain issues, reduce the amount of food and solid waste generated, increase access to composting, create and promote opportunities for people to learn about, grow, prepare, and share their food, and build and design our communities to improve accessibility to healthy foods. And again, some examples of those actions would be pursuing a pilot program to utilize food scrap, mulch, and wood waste in the creation of compost soil and biochar, increasing public access to composting services, establishing neighborhood compost sites and drop-off locations, establishing an education campaign, and pursuing recommendations from the Urban Agriculture Committee, from reducing barriers to backyard livestock and edible trees and shrubs, as well as increasing the permit area for urban agriculture in zoning districts. And some additional policy considerations and actions that are community-wide policies. The first in our residential housing chapter is a truth in sale and lease policy. And that essentially lets potential buyers and tenants understand how efficient a home is by disclosing 12 months of utility data or having a home energy score. And from the commercial building side, an energy emissions reduction policy, we looked at potential benchmarking and transparency policy that something similar would benchmark the energy used in commercial buildings as well as provide either a disclosure of utility data or a score. During our second round of engagement, we received a number of feedback from our commercial businesses that provided some information on what would be barriers in these policies. So we've adjusted the language for both of these in our third round to say that we need to continue to evaluate what these building policies could look like if we're identifying some best practices that incorporate reducing undue burden for our businesses for reporting and compliance through identifying some financing mechanisms and capacity support for them. Some additional policy considerations for municipal policies include updating our municipal building lead policy to incorporate low to zero emission and climate resiliency in new construction and major renovations, a municipal local food procurement policy, as well as a municipal food waste policy to reduce waste at city facilities and events. Our next steps in this process are beginning our third round of engagement with our online survey that's now available online at our website, and community events will occur beginning in the new year. We're releasing an RFP in the new year as well for greenhouse gas emission reduction projections, again, for those actions, so we can help prioritize what needs to come first to reach those goals. And then in March 2025, we'll come back, incorporate all the engagement feedback into our final plan, present that final draft to the city manager for potential recommendation to the city commission for potential adoption. And then our next phase will be moving into implementation, cementing those prioritizations of those actions and strategies through the greenhouse gas reduction potential, identifying funding costs, identifying and having those conversations with responsible parties, both internally and externally, and then also creating an online accountability hub for residents to continue on this journey with us. And that's our update. Any questions that I can answer?
All right, thank you. Very comprehensive update, appreciate that. Want to just say thanks to all the work that has gone into this. I know Allison wouldn't be proud if she was here today to see this come forward. And I just want to say thanks to everyone who came before me, including Mayor Hartwell, who really set our city on a path to being more environmentally sustainable. So thank you for the update. I trust the next mayor and commission will continue this work and follow up, as you said, with the next steps. Commissioners, any additional questions or comments? Commissioner?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Ms. Wilkinson, for the presentation as well. I just wanted to call out a few different items, and thank you for, I think it's really helpful to see sort of the plan and then very things that need to be operationalized, and also just the realities of some of the legislative pieces, which probably, have changed a bit since, some of this work was initially started. And I want to say thank you to those that have been involved with this work. I'm thinking in particularly, how do we kind of connect again some of our corridor improvement authorities to some of the opportunities with our businesses? I think that would be a really great step. I've appreciated some of the work. I think your department, as well as parks, as well as engineering, have come as we look at things like our bioretention islands, and just how do we have like some of the intentions that were met for native planting, and then I think, again, best intentions just probably didn't go well, but let's not give up on that. And so I think that has been a value add. So I'd love to be able to see that for things like composting or the other initiatives you listed. I also wanted to highlight that Commissioner Knight and I serve on the Kent County Community Action Board. And so when we think about the work that they do, they've been really working to remind people what they do. They have their advisory body, which does have Miss Wendy Randall from ENTF, which is connected to the Food Policy Council, serves on that body, but they are working with certainly residents in Grand Rapids across the county as well to help people make sure that they have food and healthy options. So I'd love to be able to see how we could connect that body with some of this work as well. And I'm sure Wendy has been thinking about that. And then lastly, from a financing perspective for businesses, and this is all finalized and not a contingent as we head into the new federal administration, but the Historic Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act, which flowed significant dollars. And so in my day job, one of the entities, OFN, received, I think, maybe $3 or $4 billion to really work with not just small business lenders, but also larger community development projects. But we have been on a number of calls with federal folks who understand the greenhouse gas emissions work, and then now flowing these dollars into organizations, not just like mine, but really I think it'd be good to make sure we're bringing in that CDFI industry so that we're able to capture some of those historic dollars with the businesses that might be looking to do the things that the act intended to do. And so I'll admit it's very confusing sometimes. A lot of the dollars are just going to be starting to flow, but I'd love to be able to see how we could help businesses with electrification of some, and they might not have a fleet, but they're one vehicle, their refrigeration systems and different things like that. So I don't know how far down the road you all are with that, but we have some great entities who have really delved into, and some experts here in West Michigan that are helping us really across the state to make sure those dollars get to businesses. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Robbins and then Commissioner Purdue.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just a couple quick items to comment on, and thank you for this presentation. First of all, the tree canopy goal has always been a big interest of mine, and I hope that someday, once we reach that percent, we even consider increasing that further and looking at specifically the neighborhoods, as you mentioned in the presentation, that don't have as much greenery as others. I would love to see that be something that we look at in particular. I also appreciate the emphasis on the infrastructure adaptation piece. I think a lot of communities don't consider that when they look at conversations like these, and as nice as it would be, the air we breathe isn't just a bubble around Grand Rapids. This is a multi-country, international type approach, and so I think we could remove every emission from our city, and we can help lead in that area. But I think too, just the adaptation piece does help with ensuring that our infrastructure is prepared for various weather events that might be changing over time. The need for housing too, I appreciate that you mentioned. It is a critical need and a high priority for us as a city, and so balancing the need and the desire to have more supply balanced with I think how that housing is built is really important. And then lastly too, I think I really appreciate the thoughtfulness with the talking about small local businesses and their contributions. I think from my experience, a lot of businesses want to be really good stewards of the community and just don't necessarily always know how. And many of them are family owned, generationally, and don't necessarily have all the resources to understand the nuances of different compliance pieces and reporting and things like that. So I think just keeping a special approach and understanding some of the limitations that they might have as they try to contribute to some of these things too is important. So just a couple quick items that I wanted to note. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for the presentation. There's so many items in here that I'm really excited about, everything from EV infrastructure, weatherization, native plants, protected bike lanes, so on and so forth. So thank you. You can tell a lot of hard work and thinking went through this, and I love the strategy and the design of thinking through the challenge and barriers up front and kind of what's feasible, right? And all the partners and roles that have to be played. The only thing that I didn't hear mentioned that I do wonder about, and we've talked about before, is related to food systems. I don't believe we have any dedicated staff to think about food systems and food planning as we think about our master plan and zoning and development and growth. And so that is an opportunity area that I see to make sure that it's not just something that's within our partners, but we have that expertise and that focus in-house. Especially as we think about extreme climate events, everything from hurricanes, floods, droughts, and how that is anticipated to impact our food system. I worry about just that, the food resiliency, if you will, that we need to be mindful about. So that's kind of the only thing that I didn't hear particularly called out that I wonder if it can be considered looking at its value and kind of housing some of that expertise within the city as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the suggestion. I will say community really identified food systems as a priority in their survey that came out as number 2 out of all the different subject matters they could have chosen. And so that's why it's so prominent within this plan. And so that's something I'm really excited about, that we can kind of move into that space a little bit more. So absolutely.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent feedback and recommendations. Appreciate it. Any final thoughts before we close? All right, City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you again, Ms. Wilkinson, for the presentation, and I echo your sentiments on thanking Allison Sutter for her work. Just a couple other comments on I've heard a lot of feedback from particularly the business community about energy codes and really either almost like the conversation we had about halls that we had in applying new code to old buildings and what the cost would be when we're thinking about the fire sprinkling systems, and similar to the buildings that have been, they're old buildings and changing from gas to all electric and what the cost of conversion could be, and ultimately how that cost is passed on to tenants, either commercial or residential. And so I think in our policy aspirations, we have to think of both environmental sustainability, but also in terms of the sustaining of affordability for the people who are ultimately consumers of that. And so I just wanted to acknowledge, I know I got a couple calls directly about that. And then lastly, on the food system comment, I think that the change we made today with the Urban Agricultural Committee, one of the changes was a liaison, even though we reduced the number of city appointed staff by the city manager from 3 to 1. That one position allows the position to be broadened to have someone who has a sustainability background to support the Urban Agricultural Committee. And I think as we look at, if we're going to put this plan in place eventually, in the evolution of the Urban Agricultural Committee, or maybe another need to have another group to have some more alignment, or I won't say oversight, but alignment with the plan. So I am looking forward to the final recommendation.
All right, thank you, City Manager. All right, with that, we'll bring our Committee of the Whole meeting to a close. Those of you who serve on public safety, you'll be back in here at 12:30, and then we'll all be back together again at 2. And then hopefully all of you will be able to be with us tonight as we swear in the new commissioners and mayor and library commissioners. Am I missing anyone? All right. With that, we'll close this meeting. Thank you, everyone.